Hello everyone, my name is Link. I'm here to bring you guys a sort of a build guide on Necromancer, Syndicate Operatives, Spectres. So I'm gonna do a quick, I guess I should talk about the Spectres first. So the Spectres that we use and what it does is basically the skill allows you to raise any like minion or like mob that you kill from the dead, and then you raise it as your own. So you can see the guys over here, these little blue guys holding daggers. These are our Syndicate operatives, and you can find them from any betrayal mission. And yeah, um, it's nice to use them because they they have pretty good AI, and they're really good for mapping, as you can see. Um, you can see the daggers flying out, and they pretty much cover the pretty much whole screen. Another good thing about it is that if you add greater volley or GMP, these projectiles actually shotgun. So the DPS that you get is pretty high. And you can see that the spread is really big, so mapping becomes pretty fluid and nice. And obviously, since it's a minion and Spectre build, we don't have to really stop to cast like spells or anything like that. We can just keep running and move quickly through the maps. So it's a very, I'd say like a beginner-friendly hardcore build where you can focus more on positioning rather than having to, like kite mobs and focus on getting your optimal DPS in. There are some nuances obviously that I'll get into, but we can cover that later. But as I'm mapping through, the spells I'm casting are usually like Enduring Cry, my Curse, which is my Butcher's Mark, and then my Convocation to bring them in. And here we're fighting Minotaur. And I can pretty much face tank him here because I'm pretty much tanky enough to do that. So yeah. So let's talk about the gear really quickly. So the gear is overall pretty simple. Most of your gear you just want life and res, and I guess my gear is going to be a bit more min-maxy. I guess to start off, it's probably better if I show off my beginners, like maybe like my week 2 gear. So this character was actually, it's level 95, but initially I died, and I had enough money to kind of, I wanted to start a character on pretty much a budget where I can get back to farming awakeners pretty quickly. So the gear that you see here isn't going to be too like amazing or anything like that. It's going to be pretty simple. So starting off, the most important thing with Spectre builds is that you want to hit this level 25 Spectre gem level count. And the reason why you want to do that is because you can see the maximum number of Spectres that you have goes up from 2 to 3 at level 25. The maximum number of Spectres that you can have in any build is actually 5. I think you can probably hit, yeah, it's 5. So the way you do it is you get 2 from your gem, 3 if it's level 25, 4 from Death Attunement, and then 5 from a +1 maximum number of Spectres chest. So getting that 5 limit is probably the best way to increase your DPS. So that's something that you should rush for. So you can see that my gear is going to be, at least on a starter budget, rushing to that 25 Spectre gem limit, or level. So here you can see my Raid Spectre is level 21, and then we have a 22 from Boots, 23 from Wand, and then we have 24 and 25 from our Ascendancy, which is Unnatural Strength. So that's what you should look out for. So your wand can be pretty much anything. It just needs to be a +1 spell skill gem. It can be a +1 to level of all minion skill gems. It doesn't really matter. You can see all the mods on this are trash except for the trigger and the spell skill gems. Everything else in the beginning is you just want life, as much life as possible, as much res as possible, and then enough dex to fulfill your needs of these dex gems, as well as Pusher's Mark, which tends to be quite a lot of require a lot of dex. So you can even see here that I have a level 11 dex Pusher's Mark, but I think in game it's like it goes up to 155. So you're gonna be kind of dex starved. So try to get the dex wherever you can. So the gloves are going to be, you can see life, res, and dex, as well as I have the glove enchantment for trigger commandment of light. And if you guys don't know what that is, it just gives you consecrated ground. My ring has life and res and dex. My belt is as much as life as possible, so I just use a leather belt. Optionally you can use a Stygian Vice or an Elder Stygian to get life recovery rate. Boots is going to be very, very standard. It's just life with +1 Spectres, and then any other mod is a bonus. I think I was using literally a +1 raise Spectre gems with movement speed on it at one point. Vermilion Ring is going to be life and res. Jinx Juju is a great starting out amulet because it gives you 10% more life pretty much, or EHP because of the mod itself. It gives your specters more damage. The one downside is that there is no flat life to it, so it does affect your life on block if you ever have that. But this is pretty much cookie cutter for every specter build, and you can run this from literally level 1 to level 100. The chest is going to be +1 maximum number of specters. So where you find this chest is from the minion nodes in Delve. It's pretty rare. I ran like almost like 5, I think maybe like 5 to 10 throughout this league, but I didn't find any, so I just bought my own. You can see it just has 40 life and +1 number of specters. The most annoying part is going to be you having to 6-link one. Obviously you don't want to use a 5-link, so yeah. Helmet is going to be a bone helmet with any useful lab enchantment. In this case, Enduring Cry grants 1 additional endurance charge. This enchantment is actually really amazing because it allows you to cast Enduring Cry from everywhere and it will generate endurance charges. If you don't have the lab enchant, then you have to actually be mindful of when you cast Enduring Cry because you got to be next to someone in order to get those endurance charges. You can see it's life and res, and then lastly my shield is just going to be spell block plus life and res. I went for the spell block because if you want to cap out on your spell block using glancing blows, then you do need spell block from somewhere, especially with the tree that I'm using. um, Going over to flasks, you always want a immune to bleeding and corrupted blood life flask, granite with anti-shock, silver with anti-freeze. Optionally, you can use a basalt instead. That's up to you. I was just using a silver flask because I wanted to map faster and get around faster. I mean, there's no use for onslaught except for the movement speed. Quicksilver flask, and then finally a warding flask for curses. And you do want a quartz because we're running around so much, we're going to be running into mobs like faster than and like we're going to be ahead of our specters. Like you can see that I'm running ahead of my specters, right? So having the phasing is very important in order to make sure that we don't get minion blocked into a bad situation. So yep. Finally, we have our cluster jewels. Cluster jewels is just going to be your standard 8 passive minion jewels. You can use a 9 passive if you're on a budget, doesn't really matter. And I believe the most important mods that we're looking for is going to be renewal, and feasting feeds is good too because it gives leech and damage. Renewal is the best because it's going to be 5% more damage for each specter, as well as giving them tons of survivability. And then you can see our mediums are going to be renewal as well, where we have minions have increased maximum life. And yep, the only important mod is the renewal part. So we just want to stack as much double damage as possible because this build isn't really relying on crit for our specters. Okay, and then lastly we have surging vitality. So one issue that builds like this struggle with is just having natural regen. And surging vitality is actually insane, like for its for what it provides. So if you guys don't know what it does, is it basically every 4 seconds you regenerate 10% of your life over 1 second. So if you look at my life regen here, I only have 1 spec in, but you can see how it's fluctuating every 4 seconds to 3.3k. And if I have 2, it's gonna go up to like probably another 5 or 6k, right? And then you stack it with Enduring Cry, and your life regen is hitting 5k to 7k, which is pretty um, pretty good. It allows you to tank a lot of things without fearing of dying. Um, so that's something you can look out for. Lastly, we want a Third of Hope, Unending Hunger. So Third of Hope is for getting the Onslaught Ravenous Horde node in. Basically gives your minions Onslaught, so this is for purely mapping. And then this is more of a min-max sort of setup. And then obviously you want the Unending Hunger, because this gives your Spectre Soul Eater while you map. Anatomical Knowledge, you can place that here for more life if you don't have any need for other type of jewels. And then lastly, a Corrupted Blood cannot be inflicted on you jewel, which is pretty important for obvious sakes, because Corrupted Blood does kill. Okay, let's talk about gems. So gems are going to be in your wand. It's always going to be Desecrate, some Skitter Bots. Well, it doesn't always have to be Skitter Bots, but the two most important ones are going to be Desecrate and Bone Offering with a trigger setup. The reason why you want to do this is that while you're running around, you're automatically casting Bone Offering so that we have full uptime on it and we don't have to worry about making sure that we're never capped on block. So if you can see here, we have 75, 72, which not quite capped on spell block, but you should be. The Bone Offering raises our block and spell block chance. In our gloves, we have our Convocation, Smoke Mine, Enduring Cry with a second wind setup. So the second wind is to make sure that we have multiple Enduring Cry charges at any time. Also gives CDR to our Convocation, so lets us spam more, and our Smoke Mine as well. So in our boots, we have our auras for our minions. So we have Pride, Dread Banner, Awaken Generosity support, and Poacher's Mark. Poacher's Mark is going to be our curse that we use for our Spectres. Pride for Nearby Fizz, and then Dread Banner for the Impale chance. In our shield, we have a Carrion Golem, who is basically hitting people and making sure that we do more damage. We have Vitality because we're using a Watcher's Eye with life recovery rate. And then in our chest, we have a AG and zombie setup with Meat Shield. So we have zombies, minion life, animate guardian, Meat Shield, maim, and impale. So the maim gives more damage to our specters as well as all of our minions that are hitting the target. The zombies are there for protection while you're running around. And yep. Okay. In our helm, we have our specters. We're using in this build a sort of a pseudo 7 link setup. We have +3 to minion gems, minion damage, hypothermia, and in here we have impale support, greater volley, raise spectre, and brutality support. So if you look in this PoE Ninja, actually I didn't have this setup right where I had specters on my helmet. So optionally you can just use a very simple setup where you just use AG, meat shield, raise zombie, minion life as a 4 link, and then you have your 6 link in your chest. So, and you would use vicious projectiles instead of hypothermia because it does give or provide more damage. You can use awaken vicious proj as well while you're while you don't have a hypothermia helmet. So, yep. And we go impale because we're physical based. We use greater volley because it allows all of because our syndicate operates shotgun, so it's probably the best. It is the best option by far. And then yep. Let's see, anything else I'm missing? I use flame dash. Yep. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about gear progression. So we can kind of go through from week 2 and week 3. So things that change are, one, I just got a better wand, so I no longer have dead mods on this wand. I believe it originally was a +1 all skill gems, but now it's going to be +1 all skill gems with like various minion mods that are helpful. The way I crafted this mod was that I actually had the prefixes drop. My friend dropped it, and then I wiped the suffixes, and then I basically did prefixes can't be changed, and I unveiled, and I used the Veil Chaos Orb until I hit the minion attack speed, cast speed mod, and then finally I crafted trigger, and I ended it off with that. I think ideally what you can do is you can do a double veil on this, so you probably wipe suffixes, double veil, unveil with Ashling bench, and then finish it off with a trigger. You don't need the trigger on a 4-second cooldown because Bone Offering does last more than 8 seconds. Um, so I pretty much upgraded most of my gear from the previous week. One is that I'm still using the same gloves. My belt I changed from a elder leather belt to a belt with life recovery rate. I basically wanted more regen as possible, so I managed to hit this insane belt. The way I crafted this belt was I slammed a Stygian Vice. I pretty much used Reforged Influence Jewelry until I hit Elder. After that, I put on 4 Fertile Catalysts, and I harvest crafted with Reforged Life and Reforged Likely Life until I hit. I actually hit those triple T1 suffixes. So I literally used like almost like 200 harvest crafts on this. I don't know. It was a very long time. I hit those triple T1 suffixes, and I was like, those are pretty good. So I decided to use that as my base. And then what I ended up doing was I used suffixes can't be changed metacrafting, and then I did Reforge Life, and eventually I hit, I believe, T1 maximum life. Yep. So, and it was that mod alone. After that, I decided to Leo Slam it once, um, and I hit the Wed, so I hit T1 Wed, which was basically useless. And then after that, I just YOLO Exalt Slammed, because when you YOLO Exalt Slam with Fertile Catalyst, it'll basically improve the likelihood of you hitting a life or mana mod. And in this case, I hit T3 life, so I was pretty happy with that. And then I reapplied on my 20 Fertile Catalyst, and that's my belt. My jewel is just a T1 life with any extra minion mod that helps you. Gloves, life and res. My boots is basically just a better version of my previous boots that I had. So these just have +1 Spectre gems. The way I crafted this was I was alt spamming a bunch, and I managed to hit T1 life on the prefix and then raise Spectre gems on the suffix. I imprinted and then I auged until I hit something useful. In this case, I hit Chaos Res, and then I believe I blocked prefixes, or I think I YOLO Exalt Slammed. And I hit Strength on the suffix. After that, I did an Ashling Unveil to hit movement speed. Ideally, you want Chill instead of the Onslaught because we never kill in this. But I didn't care enough to min max. I mean, if I really want to, I have the imprint somewhere, so I can always go back and try to recraft this into something better. And then lastly, we want the Cannot Be Frozen. By getting Cannot Be Frozen, we can add a Bottled Faith in, so it allows us to do more damage over, optionally we can use a Silver Flask just to run faster, or a Basalt if we want more physical damage reduction. So, there's different options for the Flask once you free up the freeze immunity flask. My ring is going to be basically, these 2 rings are just life and res, and they just provide way more res. You can see from here they're a bit different. Like this one just had life and dexterity with like 1 stat res and crafted res, and then I guess this is the same ring that I've been using since I guess level 98. But the way I crafted this was I just life harvest crafted until I hit something useful with on the suffix. Basically T2, T3 res. And then I Ashling Slammed it to hit Lightning and Chaos, and then finally you ended off with a crafted res. Obviously you can get better, you can get a double Ashling Unveil, and then that would probably make this better, but yeah, too much work. This one was quite interesting. The way I did this was I add influence to a Vermilion ring, reforge until I hit Redeemer. Then I use Bound and Life fossils, or Bound and Pristine fossils. I think the average to hit at least T1 life and T3 is about 50 or 60 or so. Hit that around, so I did that. So my prefixes were complete. After that, I did prefixes can't be changed, reforge with fire, cold, or lightning until I hit something high of a res, or that's usable. In this case, I hit T3 res. So finally, I ended up with Ashling Unveil. and I managed to hit the double. So yeah, pretty nice ring. It's kind of funny because this ring actually hit frenzy charge and endurance charge on the unveils. So it could have been one of those like pretty much a sick like the sickest ring I could have crafted, but I needed the res more than me having friendly charges on a build that I don't need. My shield, I think the shield was pretty straightforward. So originally I just had a spell block plus all max res shield with like crafted life. I upgraded it to spell block and life on block with crafted life. The way you craft the shield is you would harvest craft it. So you probably alt spam until you hit life on block on the suffix, and then you craft block spell damage, and then do reforge likely in harvest until you hit T1 spell block, and you keep the life mod as well as having a useful suffix. So for this specific shield, I did that until, and then I Ashling slammed it. I hit strength and intelligence, and then I had a hybrid life, and then I ended it with a crafted life. For this shield specifically, what I did was I had as a my tower shield, I believe it was a hunter. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but I alt spammed until I hit all max res with um, max chaos res on another one. I awaken orbs, the two together. I think I had an open prefix, so what I decided to do was I did prefixes can't be changed, reforge life likely. So eventually I hit the hybrid on this. For the suffixes, I did prefixes can't be changed, reforge with life, and I literally did like, I'm pretty sure I spent like 50 exalts on this, but because the mod is so rare, there's a lot of mods on a strength shield. Um, until I hit life on block. I hit life on block plus the regen, and then I finally ended it with a dex plus quality craft. There's a much easier way to do this if you ever go this route, is to just use the ES based shield. So something like I have a sap shield, like one of these bases, or even a titanium spirit shield. And when you do the prefixes can't be changed reforged with life, the chance of you hitting life on block is pretty high. So highly recommend that instead of going through what I did and wasting literally all my money on this stupid ass shield. Okay. Um, the amulet, you can see that I swapped from a Jinx Juju into a replica series foilable, and that's because of I wanted to stack as much life recovery rate as possible with Enduring Cry and Surging Vitality. I was at one point like 9k life regen, so and, I wasn't doing anything except casting Enduring Cry, and that's pretty good. It's pretty high. It allowed me to like tank shaker beams and stuff. So it's probably one of my favorite like tech to do. Also, one really useful mod about this is that it has items and gems have 25 reduced attribute requirements, which means that I can fit in like my poacher's mark at level 21, and I need like less dex on my suffixes, so it's quite nice. My chest was quite a journey. So what I did was I was looking for specifically a like eye level 80ish chest because I wanted to get T1 offering effect, which is the minimum requirement. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you don't get too high of a level um, chest, because what ends up happening is that if you look into here, you start running into these 84 mods, which with crit and spell crit, and that means the chance of you hitting offering effect on the suffix is a lot harder. If it's like eye level 80, it's like a 50-50 or something like that. So basically my idea was that one, I have a +1 maximum number of Spectre's chest. So I don't know if I can show this, but I guess I can write it out for you. My chest was like this. I annulled it down. I bought multiple chests, by the way, and I tried to craft like 3 or 4 of these. So hitting this chest isn't like a really easy thing to do. It took a lot of tries and luck. So one by Spectre chest to annul it down. 3 split it if you need to. You split it because you want to guarantee you separate out a prefix and a suffix, and then maybe you can wipe the suffixes, which is I think what I ended up doing. So now eventually you have your base, which is basically +1 specters, right? So this is your prefix 1. So what I did from here is that I believe I Hunter Exalt slammed. I think I might have imprinted or something. I'm not. I don't remember too much. I'm pretty sure I just YOLO Hunter Exalt slammed. So I Hunter Exalt, I imprinted, Hunter Exalt slammed, so it becomes influence. And then I think what ended up happening was I hit a suffix. So actually, isn't it? Imprint it. 5 imprint, Hunter Exalt slam, 6. So now I had something like suffix 1, was like, I don't know, like life regen or something like that, so something useless. So what I did was I did prefixes can't be changed, plus reforge with life or life modifiers. And what this basically did was it added prefix 2, which was T2 life, yeah, T2 life, and prefix 3, which was max percent life. So I got really lucky on this craft right here. And then eventually what ended up happening was I wiped my suffixes. And then I at some point had like fortify effect, so I think I did prefixes can't be changed, Veil Chaos Orb, till I hit fortify effect. So my chest was looking like something like this. It's like 150% more fort effect. And then suffix 2 was like, I think like life regen or something. And suffix 3 was crafted res. So at some point I wanted to get offering effect, so what I did was, from here you go, I wipe suffixes again, but I do prefixes can't be changed, and then reforge with influence mod. And the reason why you do with influence mod is that you're basically like a 50-50 of hitting offering effect. So I got pretty lucky, and I only had to do this twice, which I guess it's not lucky, but I evened out, right? So I did this twice, and then at this point my chest was looking like T1 offering effect, and then my 2 suffixes were open, so I had nothing on my suffix 2 and my suffix 3, and I literally ran ashlings till you double veil. I ran like 10 of them. I bought like 5, and then I ran like 5 on my own, and it's just a huge currency sink, and like why bother? Honestly, I wanted to really do it because it would be pretty sick to have 140, like 150% increased effect to fortify. Is it 150 or 120? I think it's 120. 120% increased effect to fortify, because that's like insane damage mitigation, especially when it comes to fortify. But yep, that's what I did, and that's how I crafted the chest. And I pretty much argued that this is the best chest in hardcore for Spectres right now, so pretty cool. Okay, lastly, my helmet. My helmet is quite a big upgrade from my previous helmet. So if you look here, I think my helmet was like, it's pretty much, it's like a shittier version of my current helmet. But I think if you saw from week 2, which was just life and res, it's a pretty big upgrade, because it allows me to add more gem slots as well as get more damage in from my zombies as well. So some nice things. So for my helmet, what I did was I want to get a Elder Bone helmet or Salmon Bone helmet, a level 86 Bone helmet with any Exalted Orb. And then 2 reforge or swap influence until you hit either Shaper or Elder. Alternatively, you can just buy a Nyx Crown. Alternatively, get Nyx Crown div card, which is like, I think it was much more expensive, so I just decided to not do that. You can see here, Nyx Crown gives you a guaranteed eye level 100 Elder Helmet, but I don't think there were many available, or it was like 12 exalts for one, and just not worth it. Versus, you know, buying a 5 exalted, influence exalted orb, and then running harvest, and then swapping it by yourself. 3, you awaken orb, either Shaper or Elder. 4, now this is the fun part. Spam a billion bound fossils until you hit minion damage. Until you hit prefixes, prefix 1, prefix 2. Suffix 1, suffix 2, suffix 3. So you want minion damage and socketed minion gems. So what ended up happening is you're gonna run into a lot of situations where you have like something like +2 to level, and then you have like level 18 minion damage, right? So this isn't a brick. Like you don't have like there's two ways to go about this. One is that you spam more fossils until you hit level 20 and +3. The other option is if you hit those two mods, do reforge with likely modifiers, and the reforge with likely modifiers is this one, I think. And what this can do is it can basically bump it up to a level 20 and to a 3 if you try enough. I mean, obviously, you know, there's scenarios where like this happens, or the scenarios where like, you know, this happens, and then you have to re-roll with bound fossils again. But eventually you're gonna hit the +3 minion gems, and then what ended up happening for me was that I hit minion gems and minion damage, and then I think I had to open prefix. So what I did was I did prefixes can't be changed, reforge with life modifiers, and I managed to hit the 16 life. So now my helmet was looking like this. So now the trick is how do we get hypothermia? So in order to do that, what we do is we do prefixes can't be changed, reforge with cold modifiers, and eventually I hit, I think like level, I hit some hypothermia mod. Oh wait, sorry. For this helmet specifically, what I did was reforge with fizz modifier. And the reason why I did fizz modifier is that on a suffix for helmets, if we go into the mod section here, if we do reforge fizz on prefixes can't be changed, the only physical modifier that you can roll is just nearby enemies take increased physical damage. If you look here, no fizz mods, Shaper, no fizz mods. So what this allows us to do is we can do a Maven orb. So basically, like nearby enemies take fizz damage. And then now we do a Maven orb, so that this gets erased, and then if you get lucky, this hits 25, which is what happened. And now we do prefixes can't be changed, reforge with cold modifiers, and then eventually, if you try long enough, it's going to hit hypothermia. And in my case, I think I hit 20 after like 10 or so tries, so it's a huge currency sink, and you know, obviously this is for endgame crafting, but just wanted to kind of provide an idea of how you go about crafting this sort of helm. And in my case, I hit cold res and strength, and my helm was pretty much done. One thing you can go beyond is what I would suggest is you hit an open suffix on these two mods, and then you do aug influence, and then from here you would do prefix can't be changed, Maven orb again, and then ideally you remove this like random influence mod, and then you get level 25 hypothermia, and then from here you do aug influence again, aug influence 2 times to end it off, and then ideally you get block spell damage or crit. Well, ideally you get nearby fizz enemies take fizz damage and socketed crit, but chance of this happening is pretty rare, pretty hard. But yeah, that's how you craft your helm and your gear. Obviously, a lot of what I talked about is sort of the min-maxing aspect, and you definitely don't have to do that. But I like to min-max my characters, and as you can see, I'm 100. So yeah. Okay. Whew, items are done. Now, finally, the last thing is going to be the POB and the passive tree. So we start off as witch, and we pretty much take as many life nodes as possible. It's very straightforward. Take as many life nodes as possible. Get minion damage nodes wherever we can and fit, and we get glancing blows for the block. And yeah, pretty straightforward. So you can see here we start out from witch, we path to heart and soul, grab some minion damage here, we grab spell block, um, grab more life here, onslaught, more life here, some minion damage, life, some minion damage, grab sound wheel for life, more life in marauder, more life in marauder, and then we have our cluster jewel setup that I talked about earlier with surging vitality and life, minion damage, life, and then our anointed staff attunement for the +1 specters. So very, very straightforward tree. Obviously, if you don't have this, like you can kind of like spec down to here, here, like here as well. So, and then get more minion damage. So there's a lot of things that you can do if you don't have the cluster tree set up. So, oh, so one more thing that I added as my final min-max version is that obviously the shield that I got was pretty recent, which has +5 all max res. So you can see that my chaos res is at 88%. What this allows me to do is with the Zabaka jewel, I convert 50% of elemental damage to become chaos damage. So my EHP goes up significantly when I'm taking any type of fire, cold, or lightning damage. Um, so if you can look at this POB here, my damage is around 13 million, or supposedly from what I read on some forum on PoE, is that my specters are doing 12.5 million damage if everything is hitting and shotgunning. Ideally, my zombies are doing 800k, so about 13 million DPS if I'm in the perfect position. And then some notes about this build is that I have 8.5k life. I was at 9k life without my Zabaka jewels, but obviously I wanted more elemental damage resistance. I have 8.5k life regen. If surging vitality plus enduring cry is triggered. Um, Without it, I think I'm not sure what I'm at without it. I'm at 3k still, so it's pretty good. On average, I'm at 4k, but pretty much consistently I'm at around 8k. So because enduring cry is almost always up, I'm at max block and spell block. In addition to that, I have 1,000 life on block, so even if I am taking damage, I'm pretty much regaining it all back instantly. If you look at my EHP here, this is versus a 15k hit. I have 300k EHP on fire, cold, lightning, and chaos. And then obviously you can see here that my mitigation versus fizz is pretty low. And the reason for that is, well, one, I'm using a bottle faith instead of a basalt flask. So if I were to like put in a basalt flask, it would go much higher, and my fizz reduction goes up to 58%. And there's ways to cap it out. One way is to get more endurance charge nodes. So like grab these two, and grab these two, and I'm at 70% already. So obviously there's like a double crop that you can do on your boots for getting +1 endurance charges on there. Another option is to craft a chest with the elevated hunter mod with physical damage taken as chaos, but that's really hard to do. It's doable. It's actually like not that hard to do, but it requires a lot of time, and I'm kind of burnt out from min-maxing this build, but something that you can do. Finally, I should talk about my AG. My AG has Kingmaker, nearby enemies are blind from a Redeemer chest, and then Honestly, I don't remember what my gloves and boots were. I think they're just like life and chaos res. I think I copied them from like K or whoever has a different summoner's guide, so you can look that up. But basically, your AG gives you perma fortify, perma blind, and then you can get stun immunity with enough jewel implicits using harvest craft, but that also takes a lot of time to do, which I never got to hit. But it's already hard enough to get stun because of my high HP pool, and I have the Marauder stun threshold, so that's pretty good. And then let's see, Pantheons are going to be, you can use the Naris while you map, and you can use Solaris while you do bosses, and then use Shikari. Alternatively, you can use like Rislata versus bosses if you want, and then Yugal is good versus Uber Elder and Shaper, and yeah. Bandits you kill all, and let's see. I think that's pretty much it. It's a pretty long guide, at 40 minutes, but
When I'm ready and not before.
hopefully that covered pretty much everything. Um, cool. If you have any questions, comments, criticisms, leave them in the comments below. But hopefully, uh, you watch all of this and learn something, because there's a lot to learn from even playing a build like this. It's definitely one of the most OP builds I played, so highly recommend it. All right, thanks. Bye bye.